It's sleek, it's iconic, and it's often hailed as the plane that saved Britain. But behind the legend of this fighter lies chaos in the design office, wings that baffled engineers, and even a desperate attempt to float it on pontoons. Today we're diving into the facts to answer one question: the Supermarine Spitfire, genius or junk? Just over 29 feet long, with a wingspan of 36 feet 10 inches, capable of around 360 miles per hour, climbing at nearly 2,500 feet per minute, and armed with 8.303 Browning machine guns. It became the most celebrated fighter of the war. Today, the Spitfire is more than just a plane. It's an icon, immortalised in films, museums, and air shows. But was it really the miracle machine of wartime legend, or just a beautiful aircraft with as many flaws as triumphs? The Spitfire's story begins in the 1930s with a man named R.J. Mitchell, chief designer at the Supermarine Company. Known for building racing seaplanes, Mitchell was obsessed with speed. He believed that Britain's future in the air depended on sleek, streamlined fighters, not the lumbering biplanes still in service. But genius was forged in turmoil. Inside Supermarine's design office, the atmosphere was far from orderly. Draftsmen worked frantically to keep up with Mitchell's rapid-fire demands. He was notorious for sketching radical ideas in pencil on scraps of paper, then ordering immediate changes. Entire sets of blueprints were scrapped overnight. Rival engineers complained that no two drawings seemed to match. The elliptical wing, the Spitfire's most distinctive feature, was a prime example of this chaos. While it promised reduced drag and better lift, translating the elegant curves from sketch to sheet metal nearly broke the design team. Toolmakers cursed its complexity. Production managers warned it would take too long to manufacture, and even the Air Ministry doubted whether Supermarine could deliver. But amid the shouting, revisions, and endless redrawings, a revolutionary shape slowly emerged. By 1936, the prototype Spitfire took to the air, dazzling test pilots with its speed and handling, and proving that Mitchell's messy, chaotic methods had produced something extraordinary. Even among Britain's own military, the Spitfire was controversial. Air Marshal Hugh Dowding, head of Fighter Command, initially favoured the simpler Hawker Hurricane. The Hurricane could be built faster, repaired more easily, and used parts from existing aircraft. The Spitfire, meanwhile, was fragile, expensive, and unproven. One RAF mechanic famously quipped, "You can hammer a Hurricane back into shape with a mallet. A Spitfire? Forget it, you better order a new wing." So, was the Spitfire an impractical diva, or a glimpse into the future? The Spitfire entered service in 1938, just in time for war. Its first major test came during the Battle of Britain. The plane's speed, agility, and climb rate quickly became legendary. In dogfights, German pilots often found themselves outturned by Spitfires. Its streamlined design allowed pilots to make sharp rolls and tight loops, earning it the reputation of a dancer in the sky. Yet, here's a curious truth. During the Battle of Britain, the humble Hurricane actually shot down more enemy aircraft than the Spitfire. Hurricanes made up the bulk of Fighter Command, and while Spitfires tangled with German fighters, Hurricanes pounded the bombers. So, while the Spitfire was glamorous, it wasn't the sole saviour of Britain. Let's look at the Spitfire's design more closely. Its Merlin engine could be pushed to extraordinary performance. Later variants exceeded 400 miles per hour. The elliptical wing wasn't just pretty, it gave excellent lift and reduced drag. Pilots adored the handling. Many called it the most responsive aircraft they'd ever flown. And the bad? The wing's complex shape slowed production. At critical moments in the war, fewer Spitfires rolled off the lines than Hurricanes or German Messerschmitts. Early Spitfires had poor range, barely 300 miles, great for defending Britain, but hopeless for escorting bombers deep into Europe. The landing gear was narrow and fragile, leading to frequent crashes on takeoff and landing. So depending on where you stood, the Spitfire was either a marvel or a headache. Some of the Spitfire's lesser-known chapters push it toward the junk category. Take the floatplane experiment. In 1940, fearing German attacks on seaports, engineers bolted pontoons onto a Spitfire to turn it into a water-based interceptor. The result? A sluggish, awkward machine that could barely get airborne. The project was swiftly abandoned. Or consider the bizarre beer runs. During the war, some Spitfires were fitted with barrels under the wings, not for fuel, but beer for thirsty Allied troops. It made pilots heroes on the ground, but hardly the mark of a strictly practical war machine. To truly judge the Spitfire, we must compare it with its contemporaries, the Luftwaffe's Messerschmitt Bf 109. Fast, heavily armoured, and deadly, the Bf 109 was the Spitfire's main adversary. In many respects, they were evenly matched. Germany's Focke-Wulf FW-190. When this new fighter appeared in 1941, it shocked the RAF. Faster and more heavily armed than the early Spitfires, the FW-190 forced Britain to scramble for upgraded models. And the P-51 Mustang became the star of Allied air power. With its long range and excellent speed, it could escort bombers all the way to Berlin. Many historians argue the Mustang, not the Spitfire, was the true war winner in the skies over Europe. What saved the Spitfire from obsolescence was its capacity for constant improvement. The basic airframe was so well designed that engineers could keep upgrading engines, weapons, and avionics. Over 20 major variants were built, from the early Mark I to the mighty Griffon-powered Mark 24. By the war's end, Spitfires were faster, more powerful, and deadlier than ever. Few aircraft of the era managed such a long, successful evolution. So, was the Spitfire a genius design or a piece of junk? The answer lies somewhere in between. It was flawed, difficult to build, fragile in service, and limited in range. At times it lagged behind enemy technology and had to play catch-up. But it was also brilliant. Elegant in the air, loved by pilots, and capable of adapting across the entire war. Perhaps the true genius of the Spitfire was not perfection, but potential, the ability to evolve and inspire. And maybe that's why, long after the roar of war has faded, the Spitfire's song still echoes in the skies. But what do you think? The Supermarine Spitfire? Genius or junk?